Without further ado, then, please welcome Michelle Greene, our keynote speaker from Treasury. Thank you very much.
While we figure out the computer stuff, I'll get started. I just want to say good morning to everyone. There are so many of my very favorite faces in this world here, and it's so great to see all of you here. I am really looking forward to this conference. I'm really looking forward to hearing about a number of the papers and a lot of the research that's been going on, and really taking that back and having it influence our policy in Washington. So thank you all very much. I work, well, first let me apologize to those of you who've been on the Financial Literacy Month circuit and have heard me speak many times. I'm sorry. A lot of this will be repetitive. But for those of you who haven't, I work primarily on financial literacy, broadly speaking, and retirement is obviously a piece of that. But we really look at all the financial literacy work we do as being critical to retirement security. So I'm going to start just talking a little bit specifically about retirement, but then spend the bulk of the time talking about the administration's financial literacy efforts more broadly. And there will be time for questions at the end if I'm not clear on anything. I want to start out actually with a special thank you to Olivia Mitchell and to Anna Losardi for putting this conference together. And Anna really has just been a sage, a guide through all of the work that we've been doing. She actually has been working with us at Treasury and has just been such a terrific helper. So just huge thank you to you. Let's see. There we go. Okay. Retirement challenges. So I know I don't need to tell this group about so many of the challenges that we face in terms of Americans' preparation for their retirement. We have a lot of work to do. The number of Americans who are saving, who are even thinking about saving, or thinking about what they need to save is disturbingly low. And it's something that we obviously need to change. Some of these statistics come from a recent survey that I just want to highlight because I think it's a really important survey in a number of ways, and that is the FINRA survey of U.S. financial capability. Anna, again, was very involved with that, and the Treasury consulted on that. And we really learned a lot. It was the first time that we did a really rigorous, comprehensive analysis of U.S. adult financial capability. What do people think, do, and say about their own financial capability and with their finances? And, not surprisingly, in addition to some of the disturbing statistics you see on the screen right now, we found that people think they're doing a great job, which presents us with an even bigger challenge in the field of financial literacy because people think they're doing really well, even though when we look at the behaviors, what we find is, in fact, we have a long way to go. Again, some more statistics about where we stand in terms of retirement. And people are getting this. They know that they're not doing what they need to do. They know that they're going to be facing challenges when they reach retirement age, but their actions are not meeting those challenges. And so this is really where we have to step in and find ways to change behaviors, to change culture, and really get people thinking about these issues before they're on the verge of retirement. The administration has taken some steps already, which many of you may be familiar with some of these steps, but we have some proposals in the president's FY11 budget that we think will make a big difference in this space that we're excited about. Our auto IRA proposal, which would involve payroll deduction IRAs. We're talking about expanding the saver's credit, making it fully refundable, raising the eligible income threshold. We think these would all be important steps to really influence retirement savings. And we've already put in place some steps to help expand opportunities for automatic enrollment in 401k and other plans. And we've made savings bonds an option for tax refunds. So we're taking steps already. And these steps are obviously geared specifically toward retirement savings. Mark Avery gets the credit for these, not me at all. And I know Mark spoke with you all last year. He's terrific and doing great work in this space. And just want to give him the shout out because it's really his work that's achieved those particular initiatives. President Obama, very focused on this issue. We're thinking about this at the highest levels of the administration. And part of this effort is really quite broad, and it's really throughout the administration. And again, I want to give credit to the many people throughout the administration. The Social Security Administration has been just true leaders on this front, really showing through their resources, through their actions, and through their policies that retirement planning has to start early, and that financial literacy, starting at the very youngest ages, really ties to retirement planning. So we appreciate all the work that they've been doing as well. What I want to really focus on, though, is financial capability as it ties to retirement security. So, and financial capability, we use financial capability, financial literacy. How do all these terms tie together? Why are we using different terms? I don't care what you call it. We're all working toward the same thing. But the reason that we're calling it that is because we really look at financial literacy as being about the knowledge that everybody needs. And we absolutely have to make sure that people have that knowledge. But what we're ultimately working toward is changing behavior. And that requires also access. If you don't have a bank account, if you don't have a savings account, if you don't have access to appropriate financial products and services, you're not going to be able to put that knowledge to work. And so when we talk about financial capability, what we really mean is not just having that knowledge, but actually changing your behavior and making sure you have the access to the products and the services that you need in order to do that. This is just to give you some sense of some of the recent signs of the importance of financial capability to this administration. And of course, Anna Lusardi was with us at Treasury, and what could be a better indication than that, right? Our priorities and approach. When we deal with financial capability, we really approach it with a focus in these 5 areas. And what I'd like to do is briefly explain to you what each of these areas means and give you some examples of some of the initiatives that we're working on that illustrate each of these. The first, making it evidence-based, this is really where so many of you here today come in. This is a field that is still a little bit of a cottage industry. We have some terrific research about what does and doesn't work, and I'm thrilled to hear all of the research that you'll be talking about today. But it's really an industry where we need more. We need to know more about what really does and really doesn't work. And this administration is absolutely focused on doing what has been proven to work. We don't want to just take policies and make them up with our best judgment. We want to take the work that so many of you in the field are doing and the evidence of what is actually effective in changing behaviors and put that to work to really enact policies and enact programs that are going to actually make a difference for people. So we really look at all of the work that you're doing in your research as guiding our policies and being absolutely critical to helping us decide how to most effectively move forward. So we look at all of you as partners and thank you for all the work that you're doing that does, in fact, inform our policy and guide what we do going forward. A few updates here on some of the work that we're doing that we see as relevant to the evidence-based approach here. First, we are in the process of developing a set of core competencies. We've actually gotten a group of experts together, some of the folks in this room, to talk about what is it that we mean when we talk about financial literacy. What is it that everybody, just as a baseline, should understand, should know that they should be doing? And the analogy that we use here is the food pyramid. Everyone knows what they should eat. They may not eat it, but at least they know. And wouldn't it be great in this field if we could get that first step where everybody knew? And so that's really the goal of the Core Competencies Project, is to identify what are those key core competencies that everybody should know and do. And then how do we get that word out? How do we make it a really ubiquitous set of knowledge that everybody is kind of aware of what they're supposed to be knowing and doing? So we've gotten, I'll show you, here's our early draft. This is first time ever. And what we've done is we've gotten, we think, the ideas right. This is not the food pyramid format. This is not that easily accessible format that everyone's going to recognize. And the stage we're really in now, and the reason it's not out there in the public yet, is we're taking what this expert group did in terms of identifying those core competencies, and we're working on putting that into a format that's really going to be accessible and going to be memorable and going to be something that people will internalize and know and think about when they're making their financial decisions. Metrics. We're then taking this set of core competencies and we're using it for a number of different things. And one of the reasons that we started out to identify these core competencies is that whenever we talked in this field, what we find is people are trying to measure what they're doing, but what are they measuring? We don't have a common language and a common set of goals. And so we felt that it was really important first to identify those core competencies and then to take those core competencies and turn them into a set of metrics that we can use to talk about how effective we are in reaching these common goals. Now, we don't presume that we got all of this right. We will be putting the core competencies out for public comment. We don't want them to be ours. We want them to be the field's. And so those will be coming out soon, and we hope that folks will take a look, tell us what we got right, tell us what we missed, because we really want them to be something that everybody collectively agrees this is it. And then we'll be taking them to the next phase of creating some metrics, and we hope those metrics will be useful to people in the field who are trying to evaluate work that's going on in this space. The first thing that will be coming out of our metrics group is a financial fitness checkup, which people can use to just see how they're doing. And that will be online. It'll be linked to the new FLEC website, which we just launched 2 days ago. We're very excited. mymoney.gov. I've lost one of my best laugh lines, which was that you shouldn't go there because it's really bad, and I would make fun of the old site. But now the new site's there, so go there. Check it out. And that will shortly have this financial fitness checkup on it. And then the areas where you score the worst will then be linked to resources from different government agencies to provide you with information about the topics that you need to learn more about. So it's really designed to be an interactive tool that will help people get information that's the information they need the most. Small dollar consumer loan research. Here we're getting at the idea of alternative financial services providers, and that people who can least afford it are paying exorbitant fees for things like cashing a paycheck, paying their bills, and that there really have to be some options out there for people. And so this is really a whole separate work stream of research that we are driving around what are some of those alternatives. But we're looking at both the supply and the demand side there to see, are there innovative or alternative products and approaches to meet the demand? And then how can we also get at the supply side, whether it's in a regulatory way or in developing better alternatives. So we're looking at both sides there and doing some research with the Urban Institute and others on those topics. And finally, the mymoney.gov, the new website, will have a research center. This piece of it is not launched yet, but it's coming, and we hope that everyone will participate in it and really use it. What we're hoping to do there is make available all of the data sets in this space that are out there in the public so that researchers can access them easily, can find them all in one place. We're hoping to keep kind of a living bibliography of key work that's going on in this space, again, so that people can share their research there and can get others' research, and to really have just a clearinghouse of serious research in this area. So that's phase 2.0 for My Money, but it's coming. We're already working on that. Priority number 2, put it where it works. And what we're doing here, what we're really talking about is we don't envision financial literacy as living just at Treasury or just in financial agencies or just in things that deal with finance, because that's never where it's going to be effective. It needs to live in the places where it's most relevant to people who need it. So we really talk about it in many, many different places. And part of our effort has been to make sure that it's happening wherever it's going to work. And so we work with a number of different government agencies. We said 20, we actually have 21. I want to give you just a very brief overview of where this lives in the federal government, because I think it really illustrates the point about this needing to be at the places where we're touching people, and touching people at those teachable moments or the times when they're really going to pay attention. So financial literacy in the federal government, the Financial Literacy and Education Commission, we actually have 21 members, and the reason that's exciting is because the White House just joined, which I think is actually a terrific thing, both in terms of the symbolism of the White House saying we want to be a part of this, and also because we get their resources and their bully pulpit, which is a pretty good set of resources to add. It's actually been amusing lately. The FLEC for a long time was, I think, working very hard. We have terrific members, people working really hard to get their voices heard in the wake of this crisis. And as our work has picked up, I've actually started getting calls from agencies that aren't part of the FLEC saying, why aren't we in it? Can we be a part of the club? So it's great that the FLEC has suddenly become a cool club to be a part of. So that's just to give you a sense of all the different types of agencies that work on these issues. And really, they each work on it in a way that ties to their own core mission. And it does tie to the core mission of all of these agencies. So whether it's the Department of Defense worried about financial well-being because it ties directly to mission readiness, or HHS thinking about the financial well-being of families that are part of the Head Start program. It really is relevant to the mission of many, many different parts of the government, and we think it's absolutely critical that all of these different agencies are thinking about financial capability and thinking about the ways that it can enhance the work that they're already doing. The President's Advisory Council is our group of outside experts. It's academics, it's private sector, it's nonprofits who provide insight and advice on all of these topics. obviously Treasury, I'm here, we work on this, but I think one of the more interesting places to think about it is where it's been integrated that it hasn't been before. So the White House Council on Women and Girls, I'm Treasury's representative to that group, and that's an interagency group that involves all of the federal agencies. And they, in the beginning of the administration, got together. Every agency did a report on everything that they're doing that relates to women and girls. And out of those reports, they developed 4 themes that they want to focus on. One of those 4 themes is economic empowerment and financial literacy for women and girls, which I think is terrific. That means the entire government is focused on this, and each agency is thinking about how their agency can advance that agenda. So it's really a terrific development. And finally, the Interagency Working Group on Domestic Violence. This I just think is a fascinating one. It's the first time Treasury's been a part of it. And it's because we're thinking about all of these issues. When you think about domestic violence, of course, economic empowerment and financial independence has to be a part of that agenda. But it's great that it's institutionally becoming a part of that agenda. So I just think it's a good example of this idea of integrating financial capability everywhere that it can really make a difference. Focus where it's needed most. This is really just talking about the fact that there are, and we all know this, we've all seen the data, there are certain communities that are disadvantaged as far as financial capability goes, as far as financial access goes. Historically, and it continues, there are communities that are bearing the brunt of this and that really most need our resources and our help. And this is just the idea that we are going to focus on those communities. We are going to make sure we target our resources. We're going to look at the evidence. We're going to look at all of the reports about where they are, and geographically, ethnically, whatever it may be, we're going to focus those resources where they're needed most and where we can make the biggest difference. For us, one of those areas is youth, because when we think about the current financial crisis, we have a moment here for financial capability. We have a moment where people are actually focused on this. It's no longer this nice to have squishy topic off to the side. It's front and center. This is part of financial stability. If we want to make sure that our economy is stable going forward, if we want to make sure that our nation is financially stable going forward, we have to get financial capability right. And a huge part of that when we talk about the future is reaching kids and getting this into our schools, and not starting at college when they've already got credit cards and debt, but really starting this effort as early as possible. And of course, this all links to retirement savings. We actually had an event yesterday at the Treasury Department. Treasury and Education got together, and we had a program called the National Financial Capability Challenge, which was a toolkit that went out to teachers who signed up, high school teachers, and then high school students took an exam. We had about 76,000 students around the country, all 50 states, take this exam. So the good news was we had participation pretty broadly. The bad news was their average score was 70%. And as the Secretary of Education said at the event yesterday, getting it right 7 or 8 times out of 10 when you're making financial decisions is not going to cut it. That's not going to put us in a very good place. But one of my favorite things, and I was thinking about coming here today at this event, we had this fabulous 17-year-old get up and speak. He had gotten a perfect score on the exam. He had lobbied the Maryland legislature to try and get them to make financial literacy a requirement in the schools, and he really, really believes in this. And he got up and started talking about defined benefit plans and how his generation is facing this whole different set of challenges that generations before them haven't changed. And I thought, wow, if a 17-year-old gets that, I'm going to the right place tomorrow. So it was just really terrific to see that direct tie-in, and to see that we have kids coming up right now who are thinking about that. But we really need to make sure that we give them our support and we get this integrated into our educational system. So when we talk about where it's needed most, we're really talking about youth to a great extent as well. Increasing access. I've touched on this before, and again, this is just that idea that if you don't have an account, if you're paying exorbitant fees for your basic financial needs, you are not going to be planning for retirement. You're not going to be planning for an emergency. You're not even planning for tomorrow. You're just trying to get through today. And we really can help people be in a better financial situation, build more secure financial futures if we can get them into safe and appropriate financial products and services. I just want to show you a few quick statistics. Many of you may have seen these. Most of these are from the recent FDIC survey on unbanked and underbanked households, which I think was fascinating on a number of levels, but it especially as a policymaker gave us a real roadmap of where our challenges are and where this work is needed the most. 1 of 4 adult households is unbanked or underbanked. That's pretty incredible when you think about what that means in terms of the lives of the people who are paying these fees, who are subject to theft and all sorts of other issues related to being unbanked or underbanked. Why? Most people just think they don't have enough money. They don't need an account because they don't have enough money for it. But as some of you here today have shown, even people with very low incomes can start saving, and we need to get that message out and help people to get into products and accounts and services that will enable them to start taking those steps. Here again, we have very clear targets in terms of who needs this assistance the most, and we are trying to focus our efforts to reach the people who really need it. Underbanked. I really wanted to put this one in mainly to show you the products that folks are using. And you can really see, money orders, paying your rent, paying your bills. People are paying a lot for that. In terms of what we're doing on the financial access front, there are a number of different efforts underway. I think the main one that I want to focus on, we just wrapped up what we call our Community Financial Access Pilot, which was in 8 communities around the country. And this was really a program that was designed to link financial education and financial access in communities and to show that different communities need different solutions. And so we had everything from a school-based program along the Texas border in a town there that has a very high immigrant population. Most of the parents of these kids are exclusively Spanish speaking. And so the people in that community felt the best way to get at it was through the schools. And they started a bank in the school. And with that bank in the school, they brought into the system all of these parents who had never had an account before, but suddenly felt, well, if my kid's the teller at this bank, then it's okay, and I can go in there. And what they found was that once the parents were going in and getting accounts, they wanted the knowledge that the kids had. And there was this huge demand, and they actually started an after work program, an evening program in Spanish for the parents, a financial education program that was tremendously well received. And so in that community, the right answer was going in through the schools and going in through the kids. Now, we had other communities where that wasn't the right answer. And what this program really illustrated to us was that this access issue has to have community-based solutions. The challenges are different in different places. And we, the federal government, aren't going to come in and say, here's the answer. There's no one-size-fits-all answer. And nobody wants us to be the ones to dictate how it should be done. So we really think it has to be a set of community-based solutions, but that we have a really critical role to play as the federal government. And so in the president's FY11 budget, we actually have a $50 million proposal for a program called Bank on USA. And what this is really building on a set of local initiatives. There are initiatives throughout the country. There's 60 or 70 that call themselves Bank On. Bank On DC actually launched yesterday. And these programs are local efforts to bring together financial services providers, banks, credit unions, with nonprofits that do financial education work, and with community groups that are reaching people who are unbanked, and to really get the word out and encourage people to get into appropriate products, but to make sure that those products are appropriate. And in terms of the federal role there, we think we have a role in helping to define what those best practices are. What are some of the best practices around safe and appropriate products? Getting the products right isn't enough. There have to be good delivery mechanisms as well. There are people who are uncomfortable going into banks. We have to figure out the right way to get people the products that they want. And we have a role also in providing some resources, we hope. So we're really hoping to show the national leadership and national guidance that can promote some innovation around this sector, that can really enhance these local efforts and really increase access around the country. And finally, again, we see this problem as not one that can be solved by the federal government alone, and Bank On, I think, is a good example of this final approach, which is that we really see this as an area where we need to be working with everybody. We need to be working with state and local governments because they have to be part of the solution. We need to be working, as I discussed earlier, all over the federal government, because Treasury doesn't really, tax time would touch people, and we are working on tax time. And we're trying actually to use tax time as a time that we can bring people into the system, that we can encourage savings. I talked a little bit about the savings bond program, which, as many of you probably know, this year you could get a savings bond in your own name. Next year, you'll be able to get a savings bond for your grandchild or your child or whomever you want. You can direct that savings to somebody else as of next year. And we're looking at a number of other different tax time approaches to encourage people to use tax time as a time for savings and to encourage tax time as a time when we bring people into the system. So on the Treasury perspective, tax time is our touch time, and we're really looking at all of the different ways we might use that. But we want to, again, make sure that every agency that's touching anyone, whether it's housing counseling, or whether it's Head Start, or whether it's the military, that everybody is thinking about ways to bring people into the system and to encourage saving in all of those different touch points. And we see the private sector having an enormous role here. We want to work with and partner with the private sector. And of course, the nonprofit sector has an enormous role here. And shame on me for not putting academics up there in this one. It's implicit in the evidence-based, I hope. But we really also see, and as so many of you in this room have already worked with us so much, we really see the academic sector as absolutely critical in guiding our work and showing us what is it that's most effective and what is it that works. So I'd just like to close my comments, and I'll be happy to take questions, but I'd just like to close my comments with, again, a quote from President Obama, because he tends to be more eloquent than I. And really just to show together we can prevent another crisis and rebuild our economy on a stronger, more balanced foundation. And that was part of his National Financial Literacy Month proclamation, because that's really what financial literacy is about. And I really see it as something that we are working on, but we are working on with all of you. So thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for being part of this solution, and we really look forward to partnering with everyone here. Thanks.
Thank you very much.